Like Silo said, I'm an organizational psychologist from the French part of Canada. And my story this morning for me is about what we find in common between the Grow model and the Coaching Kata. So I begin my story with the once upon a time. There was me, a very young HR expert, entering the workforce in 1989 in the banking industry. And by then, I was sure that every question asked, I had an exam to fill up. So it was kind of a final exam every time. And I was sure that I was supposed to have all the answers to the questions asked. So the young expert had a lot of pressure on his shoulder to be good and be perfect every time, and he eventually became a young manager in 1995. And I moved from the banking industry to the manufacturing industry. I was manager of our labor relations in the BRP in Quebec. We were building skidoos and seadoos, and we had a big plant with more than 3,000 employees working on 3 shifts. And all of a sudden, people came in my office as the manager of labor relations, and these could be my employees, and these could be the union representatives too. And for the first time, I had to face the truth that most of the questions being asked, I didn't have answers to that. So it was kind of freaking not to have answers and having to say, I don't know. And I was very stressed out about that. But I had no other choice but to say, I don't know, and move from giving all the answers to start asking questions. So I'm bringing you guys to a whole different dimension with my presentation, because we will be talking about human relations. And as a psychologist, this is what I can mostly talk about. And I will tell you too, I will share with you that in psychology, most of the studies that are focused at what is the best predictor of change in the other, the best predictor of change in many meta-analysis is the quality of the relationship. So apart from the tools you use, the approach you have, your way of thinking, the exercise that you suggest to your client or to the person you accompany, the best predictor of change in the other is the quality of the work alliance, the quality of the relationship. So this will basically be my topic today. So I had to move from giving answers to asking questions. The fact that I had no other choice at the time was somehow facilitating. I just couldn't be the expert or technical expert, so I had to try something else. And I started asking questions on matters for which I really didn't have an answer. And that was awkward, because I realized that when I was asking questions as an expert before, I most of the time had the answer to the question I was asking. And this was kind of comforting to me, because I knew that if the other didn't have the answer, I had it in the back of my mind. So for the first time, I experienced asking questions for which I really didn't have a cue. And this is not a very interesting experience at first. It helped me learn humility. So humility is the experience of asking questions for which you really, really need the answer from the other person. And when you're in deep need of that answer, it brings you almost automatically to humility. So I began doing that 1995, 1996, and I saw that people loved it. I saw people mobilized, involved in discussions with me, involved in decisions with me, and I was doing that intuitively, looking forward to have the answers actually, and finally being the manager I was supposed to be. But the fact that they loved it, I kind of asked myself, can I really go on like that? Can I really go on at asking open-ended questions? And is that possible in the long run? And at that time, I did not think that the culture would allow me for more than a couple of weeks or months, like probation time. You're allowed to ask open questions when you're kind of new at the job, but I figured maybe not for long. And then came the Grow model and my own growth. The biggest advantage of being introduced to the Grow model was that my intuition finally gained support, rigorous support, and it kind of allowed me to move on and go on because I could share the documents and the study and the book about it. It was not only my idea, it was somebody else's idea, and books were being written about it. And in 1992, Sir John Whitmore wrote the very first edition of the Grow model, and it's still very popular today. The main thing that the Grow model proposes is that we support the reflection process of the other instead of getting involved in the discussion's content. So this big difference between process of the discussion and content of the discussion, I figured that as an expert, I was always involved in the content and not supporting that much the reflection process of the other. So this is a very important distinction to make. So I figured that by doing so and by managing, supporting the other's reflection process, bringing his brain to different areas of reflection so he can build his own solution. Wow, this was working. And to me, it was opening a world of possibilities. But to integrate it at a deeper level, I realized that I had to redefine my view of the manager's role, because I was brought up thinking that being a manager, I should have all the answers, and that's why I was the manager. But the thing is, you have to change the way you see the role, and you define the role to fully integrate the Grow model as the Coaching Kata. So I figured that if I have to redefine my view and my conception of my role, must be what we mean by changing the culture and changing the mindset, as Susan suggested earlier. So what are the common ground? And there is more than one common ground between the Grow model and the Coaching Kata. You have the Grow model here on that slide. So you can see that Grow stands for goal, G for goal, R for reality, O for options, and W for will. So basically the question for each of these steps, what do you want as a goal? Where are you now? What could you do? And what will you do? So I compare that to the Coaching Kata because the common ground is the process. So you have a process, you have a couple of steps, and your role as a coach or a manager is to bring your coachee or learner through every one of these steps. So we do mainly the same thing using the Grow model or the Kata model, and we behave as coaches that lead a reflection process. So if you want to go in depth in the different questions that are related to the 4 steps of the GROW model, and I won't go through these slides by reading every questions. You can do so by yourself after, but you have examples of the script suggested by the GROW model for each of the 4 steps. So as in the Coaching Kata, we have a script to stick to. This is basically the same idea here with the GROW model. And you have lots of questions that you can rely to when you support the others' reflection. What else is common between GROW and Kata? Both suggest a process, both aim at activating the learner's resources and brain. So as an expert, it's mainly our brain that we activate. Now we want to activate the learner's resources. We focus on the process versus the content of the discussion. Both provide a script of open-ended, content-free questions to stick to. And as an organizational psychologist, I must emphasize the importance of adjusting your attitude to the script you're delivering, okay? And Susan mentioned something in her presentation about mindset behind the use of the tool is more effective. And if you allow me, Susan, I think that we can say here that it applies to the GROW and Kata too. What is your attitude? What is your mindset? Little trick if you want to self-observe yourself while you're in interaction. My coach, way back when, asked me to record my interactions and categorize the different phrases or sentences I could use in typical conversation. And we came with 4 different sentence categories. Technical expertise in the first block. Second, gathering information in the purpose of adjusting your expertise. So that was mainly what I was doing when I was questioning. Close-ended question that can be answered by yes or no. And I was only trying to adjust my expertise with these questions. I was not going to ask about the way my learner or coachee was reasoning. So when we act as coach or facilitator, we are mainly in the 3rd and 4th block. We manage the discussion process, and we use sentences that mark the passage from one step to the other of the process. And in the 4th one, we activate, or it's still in French, we activate the resources of our learners or coachee by open-ended questions. So you can just play with that and try to put every sentence you use in a typical interaction of 5 or 10 minutes in these blocks and try to improve the percentage of phrases of the 3rd and 4th block. Supporting the script by an adjusted attitude, create and constantly nurture a relationship filled with trust and confidence. We know that our kids will develop themselves in a safe and trustworthy environment. This is the same with our employees and collaborators. So what can I do as a coach to nurture the confidence and safety so essential for the other to risk themselves, revealing this analysis, suggestions, and experiments to come. If you want to read about humility, Edgar Stein's Humble Inquiry is a very fully recommended reading here. And finally, GROW and Kata helped me defining my own purpose. I think that as a psychologist, my role goes well beyond organizational performance. By helping people develop as better managers, I think that we are developing as better parents, partners, friends, spouses, finally human beings. And I like to think that this is my humble contribution to more humanity in our world. So that's it. Thanks for listening.